Are you ready to continue? Good, me too, because I'm about sick of this mother effing lesson series, and I think I might vomit while making this video. You think you guys are tired of it? I want to punch myself in the face for even thinking of making the whole series. Alright, let's rock and roll in this last little bit of garbage that I have to offer here. So we're going to be focusing on the friend system, and they also have a block system because a lot of people will be annoying, like I'm annoying on Facebook. If you guys ever wanted to see somebody be annoying on Facebook, you have to friend me on Facebook, because I can show you what it is like to do Facebook right. Okay, so my point is, if you have people that are really annoying, you'd want a block system in place. That way you could just silence them. And that's what we'll work on here, giving you a friend system for your social network and a block system that you can expand upon. Okay, let's rock and roll. You already have the database tables in your system for your friend system and your block system. So those tables are already in place if you follow one of the first tutorials where we created all the database tables with that nice easy script. So you don't have to worry about going into phpMyAdmin or messing with the database. It's already in place. I'm just going to give you the scripts. First I'll show you how it works live here on Web Intersect, and then I'll give you the scripts and I'll explain just a little bit. But I'm not going to explain much because, like I said, I'm ready to vomit and punch myself in the face. It's going to be up to you to decipher my scripts from what I've taught you so far. And it's going to be a similar type setup from the other things. Just Ajax request, looking for data from PHP, getting some return response, and then processing on the page. Very simple. Things you guys are already familiar with from the earlier lessons. Okay? Let's see the block system first. I'll go here to Will, and I'll click on his account and look at his profile. And if I'm logged in, I'll have buttons here that are live. If I'm not logged in, those buttons will be deactivated and there will be no clicking action upon them. But since I am a member and I'm logged in, actually let me show you my profile. If I go to my profile, they're deactivated as well, because I don't want to friend myself and I don't want to block myself. That'd be retarded. So let's go back to Will and let's click Request as Friend. Press OK to confirm the friend action for user Will. OK. It says OK, friend request sent. And then if you check your database table, you'll see that you have a friend request sent from Adam to Will. And that's how it goes. And then when Will checks his notifications, all he has to do is accept that friend request or deny it. If he accepts that friend request, then you change the 0 to a 1 in the database table for that friendship row. Okay? And then if he denies that friendship, if Will denies my friendship request that I sent him, then you simply take that database row out of the table altogether. That's the logic behind the whole friending system. Now I'm going to show you how the blocking system is set up. So let me go here to Ollie, and I'm going to block Ollie. It says press OK to confirm the block action on user Ollie. OK. It said please wait for a second, and then the button unblock user comes up because he's blocked to me now. So even if I go back to the home page, then back to Ollie, see, unblock is there instead of the block button now. So if you look in your database table, you'll see that in your block table, you'll have one row, a new row, for the user Adam blocking Ollie. And since it's set up that way, when I go to Ollie's profile, it says unblock Ollie now. So I'll unblock user. It says press OK to confirm the unblock action on user Ollie. OK. So now he's unblocked. And you would use that for places where, say, I write an article on the website, or I put up a video, or some kind of picture, a piece of content that everybody can publicly comment on. All members of the site can publicly comment on it. Or if there was a forums, for instance, and I didn't want Ollie to be able to speak within my forum topics that I create, I can block him. So that's what it's for. You simply use that logic to check the database and make sure that Ollie or whoever's looking at the page isn't blocked to commenting on it. And then you give them a comment button. But if they're blocked to commenting on that page, you want to make sure they can't have any means of commenting. Okay, so that is your friend system and your block system logic. And in maybe the last tutorial, I'll show you how to actually apply the logic to your front-end applications. But first, let me give you the scripts that'll get you to where this system is right now. And here on the home page, I'm simply querying all the people who are helping me test who have joined so far. And I'm just querying all from the database with no limit. That way they all come pouring out. And I can click on them and go to their profile and interact. Alright, so you're going to be getting the new updated user.php script that now has a little bit more PHP logic in place and the JavaScript for those buttons when they're clicked. And you can see in the PHP we're evaluating a little bit of logic to see what buttons we should offer people according to who they are, whether they're logged in or not, yada yada. And I'll explain that very quickly, but I just wanted you to see that here we have the friend toggle function in JavaScript and the block toggle function in JavaScript. And they're basically the only thing you don't know from the previous tutorials, and most of you probably know how to use JavaScript confirm boxes. So that's where those boxes that were popping up to say press OK to confirm this action for the user, blah blah blah. And that's how, if they don't confirm it and they press cancel, you just return false on this function and it won't process down any further. But if they press OK, then all of this code runs, and all you're doing is simply sending an Ajax request to a folder called PHP parsers friend System.php file. So you have to create a folder right now on your live server named PHP parsers, and that folder would live right next to your PHP includes folder and all that junk. And then inside of it you have a friend System.php script, and actually you're also going to have your block System.php script, and I'm going to give you that. I'm going to give you friend System.php and block System.php, and you're also going to get all of this updated code within user.php, so you won't be without anything that the system is using to power itself so far. You'll have everything I have. Okay, so I'm not going to explain the JavaScript functions any more in depth than that, because if you've been paying attention since the beginning of the lesson series, you are very well aware of how to assemble custom functions in JavaScript, how to pass arguments through those functions, and then how to use those values to send Ajax requests. I went over that so in depth, so I'm not going to do it again. Basically, you're just calling out to PHP with these functions using Ajax. You're sending certain data, and then you're waiting for response data to come back. That way you can process things on the page and give response to the user. That's all it is. Okay, so down in the HTML, I simply have two more paragraph tags. So if I go to my profile, you'll see those new lines right there, friend button and block button, and they're in these paragraph tags here. You can see that the buttons are actually wrapped in a span. One is called ID friend button, and the other one has an ID of block button. And that's how I target them with the JavaScript to change them from being a certain HTML arrangement to a different HTML arrangement. For instance, to make this deactivated, you have to have different logic, because if the user is the person that owns the profile, you don't want to have those buttons active. So that's why you see there's the buttons being echoed by PHP, and there's also a span around it for JavaScript purposes. So when Ajax response gets back, you can change the inner HTML of that span to make it whatever you want. Make a new button with new functionality, new words on it, whatever. And this friend button and block button are created, the HTML for them are created up in the PHP, and I'm going to show you that right now. So when you left off, you had all of this PHP already in your user.php script. So all I added, these two more blocks. Now this first block is for evaluating to see if the person viewing the profile is logged in, and if they're friends already with that person, with the person that they're viewing the profile of. You want to see if they're that person's friend, and that's what this little bit of code does. It also checks to see if the owner of the profile that the viewer is looking at has blocked this viewer. And you also want to check to see if the viewer that is viewing that profile has blocked the owner of that profile. So that's what the logic is of the code and the queries that you see right here. And these variables that start off with a value of false get turned to true if certain things meet up, and then I'm evaluating those things here. So the first thing I did was made a friend button, a disabled friend button, and a disabled block button. Now a person who's not logged in or a member of your site, they're going to see these disabled buttons. And if the person is the profile owner, like I was looking at my profile a minute ago, I saw disabled buttons. So the owner and somebody who's not logged in will see these disabled buttons, and those are the defaults. You change those buttons here in your logic. You say if isFriend equals true, then you give them a different button. This first button is for the unfriend mechanism. And then you say else if user OK equals true. That means if the user is logged in and verified, and the user owner of the profile that the person's looking at is not equal to the person who's viewing the profile, and if the owner block viewer equals false, then we want to let them request as friend, because if the owner is blocking the viewer, you don't want to let them request as friend. So there's a good bit of logic going on in this if condition, but if you really study it, you'll see exactly what it's doing. Pretty much the same logic for the block button. You say if the viewer block owner equals true, that means if the person looking at the page has blocked the owner of the page, you want to give them the unblock button so they can then unblock that user whenever they want to that they have previously blocked. Then you say else if the user OK equals true. That means if they're logged in and verified in your database and the owner of the profile is not the person viewing it, then you want to give them the block button. Okay, so that is the whole updated user.php script. Now I'm going to quickly blast over blocksystem.php and friendsystem.php since they're so similar to the parsing mechanisms that we've been used to so far within the system. The only difference is that these are separated out as their own modules for your software. So each type of system you can create a parser. So both of these files, friend system and block system, they're both living in the folder called PHP parsers. And that's really all they do, is they parse Ajax requests. And your user.php script is going to have a whole lot of functionality on it regarding JavaScript and PHP and Ajax. So you're going to want to separate out your parsers. You could put all of your parsing mechanisms right here in the top of user.php as long as you don't get any of the code confused. But I would recommend just to separate out the systems for user.php. That way you don't get it really clogged up with code. Everything stays modular and separate, and you can always find the parts of the systems that you want to tweak real easy. So really it doesn't matter if this code is living within user.php or not. And if you are going to have, for instance, other places where users can be blocked, for instance, if you don't want it to be just on the profile page where a user can block somebody else, maybe you want it all over the site, these little block links, then you definitely wouldn't want to have that inside of user.php. You would want to have it as its own little standalone parsing script. Okay, so let me explain blocksystem.php first. And the first thing we do is include once one folder up in the PHP includes folder, the check login status.php, because people can bypass all of your forms and your JavaScript if they're smart, and they can post directly to your parsing scripts. Even if you put it up one folder from your public HTML in your root directory of your web server where nobody can navigate directly to it, smart people can still post with headers directly straight to that script no matter where it lives. So you want to make your parsing scripts have the logic in them to make sure that no funny business is going on. You basically want to assume that everybody is going to post directly to this and bypass all of your forms. So that's what I do when I script. I just assume that nobody's going to use my forms, everybody's a hacker, and they're going to try and post information directly to my script here to try to hack my system or whatever. And all of the information is well filtered with that in mind. So the first thing we do is include once the check login status just to verify the user. And we say if the user OK is not equal true or log username is equal to nothing, then we're just going to exit the script. Then the next little bit of logic is if is set the post type. That means which post type it is. It's either going to be block or unblock. That's the only two values that can be. And then you want to have the blockee being posted, the person who the viewer is attempting to block. So those are the only two posted variables to this script, and they have to be set in order for your script to run. So the first thing you do inside of that script is you create a clean variable from the posted blockee variable. You just sanitize that with preg replace, and that'll make sure it removes everything except alphanumeric characters. Then you create SQL syntax that reads select the count, how many rows are selected from the users table where username equals blockee. And remember, the users table is your main table for your users. Where the username equals the person being blocked and activated equals 1, limit 1. Now what you're doing there is just making sure that the person who the viewer is trying to block is actually a member. So you're checking the database for the count to see if that member actually exists with that username. And if exist count is less than 1, you know they don't exist. So then you MySQL close the database connection. And I didn't put this in any other files because I'm not doing all your work for you. But MySQL close really should go in every part of your application where you're done communicating with the database. When you open a database connection and then your script, your PHP script is finished communicating with that database and has all the results that it needs, you want to close that MySQL database. And there's some controversy on using MySQL close or MySQL close. Some people say that when the script ends, it automatically closes the database. And then some argue that for MySQL close, that's not the case, that you have to explicitly call MySQL close to in fact close a connection to the database. Alright, so that's something that you're going to want to research on your own. Just check out MySQL close, see the documentation for it. But the way I'm using it within the system here, it will surely close open connections to your database. Now whether it fully closes all of the sockets, that I do not know of, and that's something that is debatable. Alright, so if they don't exist, then you close the database connection and you echo the block E does not exist and you exit. And that's the response they'll see in the Ajax, or whoever's posting to this script. If they're messing around, they'll see that response. Then you're going to evaluate to see if the user is already blocked by the viewer. And you get that num rows from the query and you say if post type from Ajax is block, and if num rows is greater than 0, that means that person is not blocked by the viewer yet. And if num rows is greater than 0, that means this person is already blocked by the viewer who's attempting to block them. So you just close the connection, you echo back, you have already blocked this member. And then you exit the script. Else, the person is not already blocked by the person trying to block them, and then you can just go ahead and insert the row that would create the block mechanism. You insert into blocked users table, into the blocker field, the block E field, and block date fields, these corresponding values. Log username, block E, and now. It's that simple, man. And then you run that query, and then you close the MySQL database connection, and you echo back blocked OK to your Ajax waiting, and then you exit the script. And the script is also set up to do the unblocking mechanism. So else if post type is unblock, and if num rows is equal to 0, meaning that the user is not blocked by the viewer, you want to echo to them, you do not have this user blocked, therefore we cannot unblock them for you. You close the connection, you exit script. Else if they are blocked and the viewer is trying to unblock them, and you want to go ahead and delete that row that you inserted earlier to create the block mechanism in the database. All it does is basically removes that row altogether that created the block mechanism. You run that query, you close the database connection, you echo back unblocked OK to your waiting JavaScript, and then you exit the script, and that's the end. Now the friend System Dot Php script is a little more lengthy because there's a little more checking that we want to do just to make sure things are on the up and up. Like I said, if people try to post weird things directly to this script, you want to have logic in place to stop any kind of craziness that might occur. Okay, so we do pretty much the same thing. We include check login status just to have that variable user OK ready for us to evaluate, just to make sure that it is a logged in member that's making this script execute and that they verify in the database. And then the first thing we do is say if post type, which would either be, in this case, it'll be friend or unfriend. So those would be the two values that could possibly be, is friend or unfriend. And you can see how I'm evaluating down here. If post type equals friend, I do this certain set of stuff. Else if post type equals unfriend, I do this certain set of stuff. That's how it works, okay? So we basically inside make sure we pick up the user variable to know which user that the viewer is trying to friend. So we have that cleaned using preg replace from the posted user variable. Then we can use that in our query to make sure that user exists. So you want to make sure the person they're trying to friend actually exists in the database. And if exist count is less than 1, the user does not exist. So you close the database connection, you echo back user does not exist, and you exit. Now we hit this else condition, say if post type equals friend. Now you want to do a bunch of queries here to evaluate certain things independently, separate from one another. So you're basically gaining a friend count from this SQL syntax and corresponding query. You're gaining a friend count to see how many total friends that user already has. And if they already have too many friends, we won't accept more, but you can remove that from your script. See down here in this condition, if friend count is greater than 99, so I'm not letting my system have any more than 100 friends. Nobody in my system can have any more than 100 friends. You can do that if you want friendships to be more genuine within your social network or whatever. People can't be friend whores. So you can limit it by just removing all that if condition right there and starting with if block count. Okay? So I know a lot of you guys would want your members to be friend whores and to be as active as they can possibly be on your site. So you would probably want to remove that else or that if condition. And this query, you don't need it to see how many total friends that user has. Then the next query is to see if if either the user being requested is blocking the viewer, and then the next one to see is if the viewer or if the user is blocking the viewer, and this first one is to see if the viewer is blocking the user. Either way, if anybody's blocking anybody in this equation, either one, then you don't want the friendship to actually occur until somebody unblocks or lets people back into their life or whatever. Basically, you don't want a block mechanism in place when people are trying to become friends. It doesn't make sense for two people who are friends on the site for one to block the other one. They should just unfriend that person. So that's why I put all this logic in place, and you don't even have to have it in place, but that's what it does. Then I have row count 1 being created. Instead of explaining those queries, let me just show you what they do in the evaluation. So I say if the friend count is greater than 99, then I'm going to exit the script and say user currently has the maximum number of friends, cannot accept more. Else, if the block count is greater than 0, then the user has you blocked. We can't make friendship from the two users here because the person you're trying to request friendship from has you blocked. So we exit in that case and we give them that message. Then if you, the person requesting friendship, has the user blocked that you're requesting friendship from, you don't want to allow that to happen either, so you echo back you must first unblock user in order to friend with them. Then the next condition checks to see if the row count for the first check to see if people are already friends. If there's a friendship already in place for those two users, then you echo back you are already friends with this user. And you can see row count 1 and row count 2 get their logic right here. Here's row count 1, row count 2. Row count 1 is corresponding to this SQL syntax. So read it. Then if the next query is greater than 0, you want to echo back you have a pending request already sent to this user. So basically row count 3 is up here, and it checks to see if there is already a pending request sitting there or a friendship row, but its accepted is 0. That means the person did not accept it yet. So then you echo back you have a pending request already sent to this user. And then the last check to see if the user that you're requesting friendship from already requested friendship from you. And in that case, you want to echo back the user has requested to friend with you first. So check your friend request and accept it. So that's how that query works. And you go up top and you read how it reads right here to gain the knowledge of how the logic works. Okay? I'm not explaining everything. Like I told you, I'm sick of this. I'm ready to kick myself in the teeth. I'm losing a lot of people here because this is so boring. Okay, so after all of those conditions, when you're checking to see if they're friends already or if somebody has somebody blocked, blah blah blah, after all of that passes, then you insert into the friends table actually this friendship or this union. You create that row, and you don't want to make it accepted 1 until you make the script or the page where you let people check all of their friend requests that are in the database. And I'm going to be showing you that on the notifications page. So I'll show you how to tap into all of that and all of that stored information to create lists. So you insert into the friends table the union, but you don't make it an accepted union until the user who's being requested accepts that friendship by clicking a button. And then after the insert, you close your database connection and echo back to Ajax friend request sent, and then you exit script. Now here is the logic for else if type equals unfriend. So this is the unfriending logic. I'm not going to explain any of that to you. It's all the same simple crap we've been doing. I'm not explaining it. It's the same simple query crap and if-else condition logic we've been doing the whole time. Alright, so remember, you have to grab from under the video or develop PHP. I'll have this updated users.php script. I'll have friendsystem.php. I'll have blocksystem.php that you can just copy and paste and run. And if yours breaks, you don't do something right, maybe you didn't make your PHP parsers folder and put blocksystem and friendsystem in it. So user PHP can't even find it. Maybe you did something wrong. And these are the exact scripts I'm using on my site, and I showed you guys it working, okay? So if yours breaks, that means you did something wrong. Go back and fix it. Debug. Take the whole thing apart again and start over. Now, you're only getting... I think I'm only going to do one more video